Done.
Hi everyone. So welcome to the episode 2 of Econ Stories where we meet people from background of economics doing different things in life. Today I have not just a very special guest but also a very good friend. Her name is Sabhya, and as you all know, before I introduce her formally, I when I was in IIM Bangalore, she is the person responsible for my survival there. From finding places to eat and places to live, she was all the back end reason that it all got possible. So I will let Sabya introduce her now.
Okay, so hi, hi everyone. I'm Sabhya. Yeah, as Manvi mentioned, I've known her since her IIMB days. It was nice getting some fresh young energy on campus during that year. I have been in touch with economics for the past 10 years now. It's been a long journey, and so it started with my undergrad at Kirodimal College, Delhi University. Then it was followed by a master's at Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics at Pune. And then there was an intermittent period where I worked for about 1.5 to 2 years. And then I pursued my PhD journey at IIMB. It started in 2021. So now the current status is that I'm in my final year and like submitting my thesis soon. And then hopefully that's when I plan to call myself an economist. And that's when things get real because PhD is very cozy and it's just so good to be there in that space because you're so far away from the real world. So now, yes, I'm sort of excited and sort of scared to know what happens next.
That is so nice to know. And as I'm guessing, most of the viewership of this video would be people who might be just done with their masters or maybe during their masters who are inclined
Okay.
towards economics but are
Hmm.
also confused whether PhD is right for them or not. So,
Okay.
coming to the first question, which I think our audience would be most interested in, is why did you decide to do a PhD?
Okay. So I think that's an important question because a lot of us, I think, do first of all, till my master's personally, I wasn't even aware of what the degree entails. And secondly, to be specific, research also I wasn't very clear about. You, of course, read through papers in your master's, you are exposed to research papers, but I don't think I was ever in that position where I was like, I want to write one or I want to be or like I want to see my name here. Like none of those thoughts crossed my mind in my master's. It was just like reading a book that I'm reading somebody else's work. But then I think after my master's, one thought that gave me clarity was that I was very averse to corporate in that period of my life. I was very sure that I want to get somewhere in the policy space, like bring some real impact. And I think the social sector has become the space to go these days. So there's a lot of enthusiasm around it. So I was a part of that cohort. Then I think after my master's, the fact that I want to contribute in some form to policy and then not get into corporate, that led me to explore options in that area. So it started with my work with an NGO, which was for about 6 months, I worked with an NGO. So that is where it was like fully impactful work, completely on the ground, exactly what I was looking forward to. It was great, but then I also realized that primary data has its limitations and you can only do so much in so much time and resources. So there was this urge to also know research from a secondary source basis. So then I applied to think tanks. Like Delhi is full of think tanks. So if you guys want to explore options, there are multiple think tanks in Delhi which do great work on policy research, specifically in areas of development, trade, inequalities. So I worked with this think tank called Research and Information Systems for Developing Countries. I was there for about a year and a half, and I think that's where my this seed of PhD actually started growing because I was a research assistant there, and so I was working with people who were PhDs around, who were immediate graduates, and I was also working with full-time professors, my mentors. So there was like a full exposure to this whole dynamic range of people who had been exposed to this degree. So when I was there at the lowest level of the hierarchy, that's when I realized that, if you want to get into topics if you want to work on topics that really interest you, or you really want to, that's when that urge to, yes, see my name on a paper and all of that came into picture. And that's when I realized, when I talked to those people, then I talked to my professors in my undergrad and my masters, that's when I got clarity about A, what a PhD is, B, what research exactly is about. And I was enjoying my time at RIS. So that's when I decided to apply to PhD colleges. So that was step one. Now you tell me how much details should I get into?
Yeah, so before we move on to the next question, I would just like to highlight a very positive takeaway, which I had myself while listening to your answer. A lot of students approach me, and I was one of them back then, who are trying to enter into a PhD only because they are averse from doing a private or corporate job. But
Hmm,
I
hmm,
am
hmm,
so happy listening to you that you took that reason as a sign to try academia and not just rush yourself into
hmm,
academia. You tried academia, and only till the time you got the calling of how you want to see yourself doing something very
hmm,
specific and
hmm,
see your name on a paper. Now, your reason to do a PhD was this calling and this
hmm,
passion for research, and not just solely that I don't want to enter corporate. So I just want to bring out to my audience this fact that if you don't want to do something, that's great. That's a very great step which you have achieved in terms of clarity. But now is the next step to realize that if I don't want to do this, then whatever you want to do, please test the waters and then
hmm,
enter with a positive calling
hmm.
rather than a negative calling for something else.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I think we have our takeaway for anybody who is listening to this podcast that how do I know if I want to do a PhD? Just the calling should be coming from the right place, as it was in Sabya's case.
Yeah, I
So,
think you put it
yeah,
out well, because like, not wanting to do something is not a reason to do the other thing. Like, that's clearly not the reason. So you should, and sometimes some people have a very strong calling that, okay, they just know it, which is
yeah,
fine. But since, like, I didn't, and I was exploring the social sector, policy sector, then that's when I got interested into it. So that is another way. But yeah, it's basically, you need to be sure, because it's a long journey and you can't jump onto it right away.
right. So, I mean, we're listening to you. I think we also have an answer to the question which is most asked. Should I directly do a PhD or should I do some experience of research or TA? So I think the answer is if you are confused even 1%, please try the
Hmm.
RA or the
Yeah.
TA
Hmm.
positions.
Hmm.
But if you have
Hmm.
a very strong calling and you are very sure, then maybe it's not
Yeah.
for you. So the answer it
Yeah.
is it
Hmm.
depends,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
But the broader answer is that wait for the right calling. Don't jump in because
Hmm.
you don't want to do something else.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
I
That's
think
correct.
that's
Hmm.
that's one of the most asked questions, and I hope people who are
Okay.
listening to it have gotten the clarity. So now we are done with the why PhD part.
Hmm.
So if
Hmm.
I look at your story, when you got clear that you want to do PhD after testing the waters of think tank, you would have started thinking about which colleges, abroad or
Right.
India.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So can you guide people who are now sure about a PhD that how do they
Okay.
understand the country? And after
Okay.
country, how do they understand and select a college for themselves? And
Okay.
after
Hmm.
that, once they have selected the colleges, what is a way for them to prepare themselves to get in through the
Hmm.
criteria?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, so like I would start by saying that we all are economists who are listening, so we understand opportunity cost trade-offs, we all understand. So I think basically when you take these decisions about colleges in general, they might not be as hard, because they're two-year degrees or max 3-year degrees. So you don't have to think a lot about, okay, even if you want to fly out of the country, or you want to move cities, live away from your family, So these decisions might not be as hard as compared to like signing up for a 5 year degree. And that also a degree where you can't expect like a full batch of friends, and it's an isolated degree. So you have coursework for the first 2 years where of course you have colleagues, of course you have batchmates, but it's not the same as an undergrad or a master's where you're just constantly doing things together. You're building your closest friendships, because after 2 years, then you have very different branches of research that all of you take up. Your most interacted person will be your advisor, because that's the person you have to get feedback from, talk about research questions and all of that. So in a way, it's not like taking a very it's not like a decision you take for your undergrad or your masters. So that is point A. So to mention all this, my reason is that a lot of personal constraints come into picture. So you have to realize, let's say, how you operate. Let's say you operate closer to family. You operate better if you are away from family. Like, what is your best operating mechanism? A, you figure that. Then B, you figure like colleges. Of course, you have to see if it's a management school, it'll be interdisciplinary knowledge that is shared, versus if it's a pure econ school, then there is, I would say, a lot more electives in that sense that are offered. So curriculum might differ, because then a pure econ school will offer you a much wider range of electives per se. But on the other hand, the positive of a management school is that there is a lot of interdisciplinary stuff happening. So if you have a econ idea, you can talk to a stats professor about it, you can talk to a public policy professor about it. So it all takes the shape of a wholesome project.
Hmm.
So basically, these are some college trade-offs, but I would still say that, so if I was to take this decision again, going back in my 4 year, 5 years back, I would still say that I knew that I would work better if I had my family close to me. So right now they're not like living in the same city, but the fact that I can reach them in about 3 years is a big comfort to me. So
Right.
that comfort made me choose India. That was the prime reason. But if I'm to advise somebody, then I would say, if that is not a major constraint or an issue for you per se, then investing in a PhD abroad is a great idea, because it's definitely an investment. So if you can live 4 or 5 years of your life, put in all the hard work, maybe not have a lot of friends, but be in a foreign country, if you're okay with that thought, I think it's the best thing you can do to yourself. That's great. But that is one thing, because I think PhD, especially in the United States, offers a lot more opportunities, even in India as well as there. So even if you want to come back after your PhD, you have a lot more opportunities available to you compared to doing it from here. So that is one trade-off that I realized. But like I said, opportunity cost. So I personally wanted to stay closer to family, and also I was personally, IIMB curriculum, the coursework that they follow is very close to what is taught abroad. So education, like the education that is imparted, I'm not saying there's any difference there, but when it comes to opportunities post PhD, that's what is my major concern, that it might slightly be better if you pursue it from the United States or probably any other country. I'm not very aware of other curriculums. So that is one thing. But largely, I will say, even when it comes to, let's say, choosing a college abroad, then I will say a lot depends on who you want to work with. So I would say the college name comes after. First comes your advisor's name, and all depends on how closely you guys are going to vibe, how close your research interests are, how close your working mechanisms are. I think an advisor makes or breaks your PhD. The institute is
Yeah.
just like, of course, it matters, but the role the advisor plays is unmatchable. So, I think even I was very confused. So, these are some questions that you were unaware about, that should you go for a bigger name of an institute, or should you like go for an advisor who like you really like working with, or so I think the answer is always advisor. And in that sense, for upcoming students, you can always, reach out to professors on an email. You can always like have some sort of communication with them beforehand to understand if you're going to, if you like working with them, if you're going to like in the future, do you see yourself working under them. So you can basically try all those experiments because I think professors are across the world. Professors are very helpful when it comes to PhD students. So you can just drop a mail. You can figure out what the situation is like. So just don't apply randomly. Just figure your professors first, figure your research interests first, then probably figure your professors. Then that's where how you shortlist colleges. Then you can start your applications. But again, okay, so now you also mentioned how to get there, the parts that how to get there. Something I also realized after my master's was that where you do your master's from in India really matters for a direct PhD admission abroad. So if let's say you're not from DSC or ISI, personally, that was my realization. You usually have to consider a double master's so that you can make it to one of the best colleges that's your target. If you want to get into like some top 10, top 20, you have to consider a double master's to make it to some top programs in the US for a PhD. Because yeah, if you're okay with like a lower rank and all of that, then of course you still have a lot of options. But just if that's the idea, because when I wanted to consider this option, I was clearly told that I should be considering a double master's or I should be okay with a lower ranked college. And I was not okay with both. So somehow I just draw even, and I was anyway not convinced to go abroad. And then I was given these two options. So all in all, the universe just conspired me to stay in India. So I was happy. But yeah, so basically these are some points that I will say you should keep in mind. And like if you are not willing to spend those extra years in a double masters, then you should be okay with a lower ranked college. Or if you really if you're like you have some target colleges you have to get in there, then be okay doing another masters, and then probably they only rope you in their PhD programs after 2 years.
Right.
So that's another trajectory. Yeah.
So if we just consider IMB, if someone
Hmm.
has a very similar background to you, uh,
Hmm.
let's say Gokhale or any other college which is
Hmm.
very
Hmm. Hmm.
similar, then what would you advise to people who are applying to, let's say, just IIMs? So,
Okay, just IIMs. Okay. IIMs, I will say, okay, so you have to give one of the tests, which is either GRE, GMAT, or CAT. So, I mean, for you, and even IMB has their own test, which is IMB test. So you can do any of these. All of them are basically basic quant and basic English exercises, which I think, yeah, it's you need preparation for sure, but they're not very hard to crack. That is the first step. After that, of course, there's a statement of purpose. And a lot of people reach out to me also asking that I don't have publications, can I still apply? Then they'll ask me, I don't have WorkX, can I still apply? So just to clarify, yeah, like none of that is a criteria to not apply, because I am when all my interview experiences at IIMs taught me that they are looking for students who are willing to learn, who are willing to grow. They're not looking for established researchers per se. They are looking for people who are willing to explore, who have this urge to first learn and then add to knowledge in the subject. So that, and of course professors at their position have a knack of recognizing that part. So that is, I think, the prime criteria which I think your SOP should reflect. It should reflect
right,
these aspects that I mentioned, and not so much about your publications or your work ex.
right.
That doesn't matter. So yeah.
Okay. So if I were to summarize your answer, if we are comparing India and USA, then it's personal given how comfortable you are going abroad. And if you are comfortable doing another master's in case you are not from the top-notch college of India. Let's say now the decision is that they are going to do it from India, then they have to consider a combination of
Hmm.
advisor and the college brand. giving more weight to the advisor who should be aligned with their topic. So, an ideal way would be to go through the website, see if the prof is doing work in their area, and drop them
Hmm.
mails. That
Hmm.
naturally will
Hmm.
let them
Yes.
have a fair idea of where they want to apply. And after that, the criteria of getting in is very specific, which is written on their website. There is either a test,
Hmm.
SOP, and
Hmm.
interview, which is not very hard to take. And the syllabus is
Hmm.
always mentioned there.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think as I have mentioned in the first video of my channel that I myself wanted to do a PhD, but then it all got changed. IIMB also offers you a pre-doctoral program, which
Hmm.
is also a way to test if you want to do a PhD. And practically speaking, it's much easier to get in as compared to a PhD. So
Hmm.
people can also look up that. I will put the link in the description box. So I think that's a very fair way to assess if you want to do a PhD.
Yeah, and I can also add, so a lot of professors at IIMs also take RAs under them for specific projects that they're working on. So if you, let's say, just want to get exposed to the IIM system or you want to understand a prof better, you can always like be on a lookout for these opportunities. And these professors also post these positions on their websites, so you can, let's say you end up having a favorite prof, and then you can just keep stalking their website regularly, so that as soon as they post an RA position, you can reach out.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think most of the part we have covered, and the last question is a very light-hearted question about your experience at IIM Bangalore. And feel free to go as much as you
Okay.
want into the detail.
Okay, so my experience at IIM Bangalore has actually been great. Like, I think, first of all, I'd just like to say, like, I'd heard these horror stories about PhD that, people, it's so hard, like, people feel this way, people feel that way. So my initial first 3 years, I was completely alien to that thought. I was like, I don't know why people keep crying, like, it's so fun. Like, you just get to study so much of economics and then you get to do research. Like, what's there to complain? I think my first 3 years in that sense were great. Like I did my coursework, I gave these comprehensive exams, and then I got onto full-time research. So everything was very exciting. Then I think when the fourth year hits, that boredom and that same thing you do keep doing again and again, those failures where the model doesn't work, the code doesn't work, the regression is not showing the right output. I think that fourth year just like made the thing seem very gloomy. And that's when I was like, okay, I spoke too soon. I should have like waited it out. That maybe people talk about the fourth year when they're crying about their PhDs, because now I relate to them. So fourth year was that it was a tough year, but then on the other hand, it was also about, okay, now I'm so close to the finish line. I have to just get through. So that thought kept me going. And then I would say one random day my model worked, my results came out. I mean, I was at the top of the world, okay, like everything is has fallen into place. So all in all, I would just say that those the joys are very little in this degree. The joys are very little and the validations are very low. So you have to find stuff on your own to keep you going, because everybody, like the advisors, the professors, they expect great work. They have high expectations. So sometimes you just have to validate your own self. Sometimes you have to keep putting very small milestones, celebrate your own milestones. Like, so that part was hard. So I would say fourth, and then coming on to my fifth year, that part was hard. But then fifth year started. I had the opportunity to go to conferences. Again, there was some excitement back into my life where I was like, okay, now I get to travel and now I get to present my research. So again, some exciting times. Now I would say, now that I'm almost on the last leg of this journey, it is it is full of mixed emotions, because as much as I was excited to finish and like be done with my PhD, I also realized that I've developed this some very strong attachment to my thesis, and somehow now just letting it go, or like just not constantly thinking about it, is creating a very big hollow space in my head, that okay, what am I going to think about now? So
Hmm.
that is another thing. So I think Manvi caught me at the right time, in the sense that there's so much going on in my head with this transition, that okay, what's going to happen? And this constant. So, like I said, PhD is, I would say it keeps you so isolated from the real world because you're just so engrossed in your research and so engrossed in that little world that you build, which doesn't go beyond your papers or your code or anything. And suddenly, now that I'm like, okay, I have to move out of that world, it's not easy. So it's like, okay, and now you don't have an advisor who's constantly going to like cater to your questions and give you feedback on how you're doing. Now suddenly that not having an advisor, not having like this structure in my head of what is happening, what is not happening. I think, yeah, of course it's intimidating, but I'm sure it's going to be fun and exciting again. So all in all, IIMB has been great. Yeah, I think I chose the right college in the sense of the city. It's beautiful. And Bangalore, of course, I've had a great time here. I love the city, and I really hope I get to like work here post my PhD. Like it's been my top city so far. So yeah, that's been
Yeah, I
awesome.
mean, I completely relate with the IMB part. And as I was discussing with you today while we are shooting this video,
Yeah,
it's exactly the time when it was my last day here a
yeah,
year ago. And though our experiences are very contrary, that place
hmm.
gave you research, that place gave me clarity that for
Yeah,
me,
yeah,
research is not the right thing as of now. But broadly speaking, that place always gives you something which is beneficial to you, and that can vary
definitely,
person to person.
definitely, yeah,
I,
that's true.
I mean, thank you so much for coming and talking to us and letting people know because these are the things you really cannot Google.
Of
You
course, huh.
can't find them on websites. And I hope we have you soon again in a video where we talk
Sure,
about
sure.
what to do after a PhD.
Sure, yeah, I think I'll have answers. I hopefully will have answers
Oh,
soon.
absolutely, absolutely. So thank you
Yes.
so much, and we wish you the
Thank
best.
you. Thank you for having me. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Bye.